Oh, what is the upsies, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the GXHockeyCast. We are on episode 65 of my little hockey show where once a week I go through all the news and the whatnots that's going on in the NHL, generally focusing in on the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Calgary Flames, but I can talk about any of the 32 teams in the NHL. So what is on tap for today? Admittedly, a little bit of a light news week right here, and I am recording this on Wednesday, so if something went down Thursday, Friday, my apologies. I'm having surgery Friday, so I'm not going to be able to record on Friday, so bear with me. But we have a little bit of news coming out of Calgary, some really strange news out of Philadelphia, and then I will be finishing off my season previews with the Central Division. If you want to check out the previous three divisions, the Pacific, Metro, and Atlantic, you're going to have to go back and check out the three prior episodes of the GX HockeyCast to see those opinions. So let's dive into the news. So let's start with Calgary. Finally, a little bit of good news coming out of Calgary in terms of players wanting to stay. Apparently, Elias Lindholm now has flipped the script, changed his mind a little bit. It's coming out that he says he wants to stay now with Calgary. So this is fantastic news. Or is it? I don't know yet. Calgary is a very up in the air team right now. They had a very disappointing season last year. A lot of turnaround. A lot of their big players have left, and yeah, we got new coach, new GM, and we're just going to have to wait and see until the season starts what this Flames team is going to be. Are they going to be a playoff team going for a playoff spot? Are they going to be in the mushy middle? Or are they going to fall apart and maybe we're sending Calgary down the retool path? I mean, that one is probably the least likely to happen, but you never know. It's the NHL. Anything can happen at any point. But if Elias Lindholm is wanting to stay, he's got one more year left on his contract, paying him like under $5 million. So Lindholm is going to get paid. Are the Flames going to want to pay him? I think it's going to be tough, man. It's going to be tough. I mean, he had a down year last season without Gaudreau and Tkachuk on his wings anymore, but probably still the best center that Calgary has on the team at this point. And yeah, I mean, it'd be great to keep him, but it's going to depend on that price. I don't think he's going to be cracking like $10 million or anything, but more than likely in that $8 to $9-ish million. That might be a little high as well, but we'll see. We'll see if Calgary is able to get something done with Lindholm. If they can get that extension done before the season starts, more than likely not going to be done that fast. Maybe throughout the season, he could still get traded. We're just going to have to wait and see. If they can get him extended to a decent contract, it's going to help his trade value. If they want to move him at the trade deadline, they could probably get something pretty nice for Lindholm. He's a good player, and especially if he shows that he can rebound at the beginning of this season, gets back on that goal. I don't think he's going to be like that 40-plus goal guy anymore without Tkachuk and Gaudreau, but Huberdeau, if he can step back up, the points start to build back up, they might be able to get something really tasty for Lindholm. But I mean, you know, they're going to want to be, I don't know. Calgary's a very mysterious team for me personally right now. I don't know what direction they're going to go, which is not good because that kind of makes me feel like they're going to be in the middle. And I say this all the time, being stuck in the mushy middle of the league is the worst spot to be in. So we're going to have to wait and see what direction Calgary's going for, but at least it's nice to hear that Lindholm is more prone to wanting to stay now. So that's good. It seems like at this point, everybody is wanting to stay except for Noah Hanifin. He still seems pretty driven to move on from the Flames after this season, but again, there's still quite a bit of time, so things can change. So that's pretty cool. And then we got a really weird story going on in Philadelphia and the KHL. So Philadelphia has a young goaltender, Nikita Filatov, and he's got a contract with the Philadelphia Flyers, but he's been playing in the KHL. He's been over in Russia, and apparently he's not coming back. He's not going to honor that contract. He's just going to play in the KHL. So this is bad. This is not good. So KHL is just kind of being like, nah, we're not going to give him back. He's ours. And honestly, there's really not anything the NHL or the NHLPA or the Flyers can really do about that unless they want to go on a rescue mission and try and drag his ass to America. But it's a very sketchy situation. And it's really not a good look right now for Philadelphia because their most recent first-round pick, Mishkov, he is also playing in the KHL. He's being scratched right now, so it's not looking really good for the KHL and their young players. They've had a long history of not utilizing younger players. They're a competitive league, so they're just trying to put the best lineups on the ice, and generally the younger players are the one getting sacrificed. They're usually getting fourth-line minutes. They don't get to shine very often. It's very rare that a young player is getting into the top six. And Mishkov getting scratched. Apparently there's a 17-year-old player getting put into the lineup over him. I believe he's playing for St. Petersburg, who is pretty much always a powerhouse team in the KHL, so yeah, it's going to be bad, and he's locked in over there for 3 more years, so if he just plays fourth line minutes or getting scratched often for the next 3 seasons, it's probably not going to look very good if he ever makes it over to America. And right now, if I was a Flyers fan, I'd be very, very nervous because you just lost a goaltender potentially. I don't know if he's ever going to come over and play. I can't even remember if he was that high of a highly touted prospect for the Flyers, but regardless, he's a prospect, and you don't want to just lose your prospects because they just won't give them back. It's a very odd situation. I don't know how they're going to handle it, and they're going to have to do something because that can just continue. The KHL can just be no, we're not going to give you this player. He's ours. And, I'm not necessarily familiar with how shit works over in Russia. All I know is it's much more different over there than it is here in North America. There's mandatory military services you have to do over there and all that stuff. I've heard numerous stories of it being very difficult to get out of Russia. You can look up the Alexander McGillney story. A little bit more recently, Evgeny Malkin had a tough time getting out of Russia and coming to America to play. So this is something we're going to have to keep our eyes on with the KHL and what's going to go on with this situation. I mean, maybe he comes over and plays. Maybe they get this all worked out. But as it is right now, it's not a good situation, and the Flyers are going to have to try and figure something out. Maybe get Mishkov the fuck out of there. And the NHL could do the same thing. If they can get Mishkov over here, and then the KHL's no, he's got a contract with us. He's coming back over. And the NHL can just be nah, he's ours. And then we'll see what happens there. I don't know. That can get really ugly. I don't know. Maybe we're going to get Russia's Men in Black involved, and they're going to start stealing back their Russian players. Maybe they steal Ovechkin, and he doesn't get to the Gretzky record. That would be crazy. That's kind of like a movie storyline if that goes down. But regardless, something that I'm going to be keeping my eye on in the future, especially with the Flyers, because, Mishkov, if Mishkov never comes over, or whatever's going to happen, so that's something to keep an eye on for sure. And then just going to touch on the Patrick Kane situation. So he is still not signed with anybody. He's come out and said that he doesn't want to sign with anybody until he's fully healed. And a little update on that. Apparently, Patrick Kane is ahead of schedule in terms of his healing. So some people have been discussing where Patrick Kane may end up. And honestly, I feel like there's only 2 of my favorite options are just go back to Chicago and work with Bedard and finish out your career. There really is no point in him chasing cups. He's got 3, so there's nothing to prove there. He's already a first ballot Hall of Famer, I would say. He's really got nothing left to prove, so it's really up to him what he wants to do. And so he can go back to Chicago and shepherd the young players and finish out his career as a Chicago Blackhawks legend. He could do that, or the fun option, which I would love for this to happen, he signs in Buffalo, his hometown team, and helps them get to the playoffs for the first time in 12, 13 years or something like that. That would be awesome. Buffalo has the money to sign him. They got way more than enough. I can't see Patrick Kane being offered very much money. He's made so much money already. I don't think money, again, is something that he's going to prioritize. I think he just wants to play hockey and do it in a fun fashion, I would imagine. I don't really know. I don't think he's going to go back to New York. I think Buffalo would be amazing, man. He's never played, he has played slightly in the East last year with New York, but it would be really fun to see him go with Buffalo, help them out on the wing, play with some of the young, amazing talent that they got over there, and Dahlin and fucking Thompson, and man, it would be really awesome to see Patrick Kane over there. Maybe he signs for like $1 million, and that would be really awesome. I think that would be an amazing storyline to finish out Kane's career. It's like, oh, you had that amazing Chicago run, obviously, with the 3 cups and all that, but then you finish it out and you take Buffalo on a couple of playoff runs before you retire. That would be a lot of fun. So me personally, I would really, really enjoy for him to go to Buffalo, make that offense that much more potent. And again, I mean, who knows what Patrick Kane's even bringing to that team? Is he a top 6 player anymore? Is he still elite after hip surgery? It's tough. That is a really hard surgery to come back from, but it is Patrick Kane. He is getting older now, and he didn't necessarily make the biggest impact when he was in New York. So again, that means I just don't think he's going to get all that much money. I can't see Patrick Kane signing like a $5 million 1 or 2 year deal with the Sabres or something like that. That'd be a little nuts. Maybe he can get more money with Chicago just because like they can give him that. He's a legend there, whatever. But again, I don't think he is very worried about the money. He's made so much freaking money. So curious to hear what you guys think. Where do you think Patrick Kane ends up? And do you think he's going to sign with someone before the season begins? Or is he going to be hopping onto a team like a month or two into the regular season? Personally, it'd be always better just to get it figured out, get onto a team and get used to the system, and then off you go. So we'll see. Maybe we hear from Patrick Kane signing with a team sooner rather than later. And that's about all the news that's been going on in the NHL. Again, if I missed something, my apologies. I will get to it next week. So let's get to the main event. Let's talk about the Central Division. And I want to start off with the Colorado Avalanche, who are just a couple seasons ago won themselves a Stanley Cup. A slight, I guess, sort of a disappointing year last season, getting taken out by the Kraken, which was definitely a huge surprise to everybody. I don't think barely anybody gave the Kraken even a shot at taking down the Colorado Avalanche, but they did. And Colorado going through some changes, losing Nazem Kadri. The future of Landeskog is still quite hazy. Is he ever going to play again? It's going to be interesting. So they did make some changes this offseason. They were able to re-sign Cogliano. JT Compher is off to Detroit. Lars Eller to Pittsburgh. Josh Jacobs to St. Louis. Jonas Johnson to Tampa Bay. Eric Johnson has gone to Buffalo. Jack Johnson, he's back. So they kept one of the Johnsons. Dennis Malgin he's gone to Sweden or the Swiss National League, back to the SN. Whatever, he's gone. Mikhail Maltsev is with Los Angeles. Matt Nieto is in Pittsburgh. And Evan Rodriguez signed with the Panthers. And then they did make quite a big splash in the offseason, signing Miles Wood to a 6-year contract extension. It's a gamble, that one. He was kind of falling off a little bit in New Jersey, and a little bit of an eyebrow-raising contract giving out, but if this guy can get back to being a really effective power forward, that could be an amazing contract. He could fit in beautifully with the Colorado Avalanche. We're going to have to wait for that. And Jonathan Drouin signing a 1-year deal with Colorado. This could be, again, a bargain signing. He's locked in really cheap. He's got history with McKinnon, so if those two can hook up, that would be fucking sweet. Bowen Byram, 2-year extension. Tufte, Wagner, Schuneman, Holm, they're all re-signed. And we got all those guys. Colton signs a 4-year contract, and Myers a 1-year deal as well. So let's take a look at their cap friendly. We all know that the Colorado Avalanche is a pretty nice looking team. They're quite stacked. So we'll start with, who is running this team? So cap space, they don't have any cap space, obviously. Their coach is, or GM, Chris McFarland, head coach Jared Bednar. Both of those guys are in good shape, obviously, with the recent Stanley Cup and whatnot. And let's take a look at this forward group. So you got Nathan McKinnon, the highest paid player in the league at this moment, beginning his 8-year deal. Mikko Rantanen, Valerie Nichushkin, who has been a great fit for the Colorado Avalanche. Same with Lehkonen. Ryan Johansson brought in, possibly could be their second-line center answer. We'll see if that works out. He's got $4 million for the next 2 years, so it could work out. It may not. They brought in Ross Colton, who I really like that signing right there. Got him locked in for 4 years. Miles Wood, Logan O'Connor, Andrew Cogliano, Jonathan Drouin, Ben Myers, and Frederick Olofsson. So I mean, it's definitely hurting that they don't have Gabriel Landeskog in there, but that top six of Mikko Rantanen, Nathan McKinnon, Valeri Nichushkin, Arturi Lehkonen, Johansson, and possibly if Jonathan Drouin can get into that top six, that would be awesome. Really like Jonathan Drouin. I mean, I played so many NHL games with this kid in there, and he's been a stud for so many of them, but yeah, hasn't necessarily found his way. I think former second overall pick or third or something like that, and maybe this is the home, maybe this is the place. Nathan McKinnon, maybe he can bring out that fucking missing piece in Jonathan Drouin and he just emerges. Maybe he can get 50-60 points and getting signed on basically a league min. If he can do that, that would be huge for the Colorado Avalanche. And they have a pretty decent looking bottom six. I mean, with Miles Wood in there, Cogliano, even though he's older, but he's still got the speed and the defense. It's not like as amazing as it has been in previous years. I don't know what's going to happen with Ross Colton, if he's going to be in that bottom six, top six, but if you're moving like Lehkonen down to the third or whatever, it's still a pretty good third line. I don't think they have necessarily a four-line team. Like all four of these lines are going to be scoring on you, but definitely those first two third line could also score on you as well. Take a look at that defense. You got arguably the best defenseman in the league in Cale Makar, Samuel Girard, Josh Manson, Devon Taves, Bowen Byram, Curtis McDermott, and Jack Johnson. This is a fucking deadly defensive core right there. I mean, Cale Makar, like I said, one of the best. Girard, he is a really good underrated defenseman. Manson, he's been a fantastic pickup. I really wanted the Leafs to grab him, but he's been a great fit for the Colorado Avalanche. Devon Taves, probably one of the most underrated guys in the freaking league at this point. And he is on his final year, paying him $4 million. So Devon Taves is about to get paid. And is he going to be staying with the Colorado Avalanche? I don't know, because they got a lot of other young defensemen. They got Bowen Byram here. As long as this kid can stay healthy, this could be the season we see Bowen Byram emerge for 50-plus points. That would be excellent. And then Jack Johnson, McDermott rounding out their bottom six right there. Just looking, they have a couple guys on PTOs, but we don't know if they're signed just yet. But yeah, that is a very strong defense and forward group. They're going to be pretty deadly on the power play, and I think their penalty kill should be good. And in net, you have Georgiev, who was really freaking awesome for them last season. He has emerged. He is a starting goaltender now officially. And yeah, he should be very solid for the Colorado Avalanche again. And then Pavel Francouz, who just can never stay healthy, but I am a fan of this guy. Whenever he plays, he's really good, and he's in the final year of his contract, paying him $2 million. So the tandem is going to stay the same, and it should be solid. I mean, I like that tandem right there. Looking at any of their younger goaltenders that might fight for a spot, not necessarily. They have some guys down in the minor leagues like Brad Hunt, an older depth defenseman and stuff like that. They have some older forwards down there, and Chris Wagner, more than likely some depth options as well. So the Colorado Avalanche looking very tasty. I mean, it would be really nice if Landeskog can come back, but I don't know the future of that player at this moment. He may not play again, but we'll see. So the Colorado Avalanche I have listed as second in the Central. They should be very much so playoff bound, and we'll see how far they go in the playoffs this time around. A little bit of a disappointing playoff run last season, but I mean, you can't really complain too much when they just won a Stanley Cup the year before. So yeah, I think the Colorado Avalanche safe to make it into the playoffs. Let's do a Canadian team. We'll talk about the Winnipeg Jets, who have had a very interesting last year or so with a lot of, sounds like locker room problems. Maurice has just left the team, and he's off to Florida. And, things are getting weird. Blake Wheeler, their captain, is gone now. And what's the future of Hellebuck? What's the future of Scheifele and all that stuff? Pierre-Luc Dubois getting traded. So, yeah, the Winnipeg Jets have been up to a lot this offseason. So let's see who they lost. Arvid Holm is off to Colorado. Alex Johnson-Fialbi re-signed. Kuhlman is off to the Islanders. Lamage is off to Washington. Namastankinov, he re-signed. David Riddick is off to Los Angeles. And Kevin Stenlund signed in Florida. But they did get some stuff done this offseason, signing Delia to a 1-year, Brossoit, Namastinkov each re-signed, or Brossoit is back. Johnson Fialbi re-signed, Viel 1 year, Sandberg 2 years, Barron 2 years, Velarde from Los Angeles, Kupari, and Stanley 1-year deals. So take a look at their cap friendly, see how they're doing in terms of money. They got a little bit of money. They got just under $2 million here, so maybe they can do a little something with that. Add a Phil Gettel. There's still some pretty okay players out there that they could add to this team. General manager Kevin Cheveldayoff, he has been the GM, I think, since the Jets began, since they came back. I don't know I don't know if this guy's ever going to get fired. It doesn't seem to matter, but if the Jets have another down season this year, and maybe he makes the Hellebuck trade and it's really bad, maybe he makes the Scheifele trade and it's really, really bad, maybe Kevin Cheveldayoff gets into the hot seat, but he's been here for so long, I just don't know. And then head coach Rick Bowness, he started last season, seemed to get a little bit more out of this team, so we'll see how he does this season as well. We take a look at the forward group. One of my favorite players in the league, Kyle Connor, my boy, should be guaranteed good for at least 40 goals. You got Mark Scheifele, final year of his $6 million contract. What is the future for Mark Scheifele? He's 30 years old now, so he could easily just say he's kind of in and out of the door. He wants out. He kind of wants to stay. It's kind of unknown at this point what he wants to do. Last season was not up to Scheifele's standards in terms of points. He was under a point a game for the first time in a very, very long time, but he did score 40 goals. So, we'll see how that goes. I don't really think he'll score 40 again, but I'm hoping he can get back up to that point a game mark. So that's the big question mark right now with the Jets. Are they going to move off of Scheifele? Are they going to hold on to him? How long are they going to hold on to him? Is he going to start the season for the Jets? We'll have to wait and see. But if he stays, he should be good for in and around a point a game. You got Nick Ehlers, who's kind of been looking to find his way back into that top six. He's been dealing with some injuries. He's got 2 more years paying him $6 million. He's a great player. He's just got to stay healthy. And they brought in Alex Iafallo, gave him a $4 million extension for 2 years. He should be sliding into that top 6. Played quite well last season with the Los Angeles Kings. They also brought in Gabriel Velarde, locked him up for a couple more years. He's 24. I really like this player. He was scoring a bunch of goals last season. If he can continue doing that with the Jets, he should be a fantastic addition. Really like their additions here with that PLD trade, bringing in Iafallo and Velarde. I think with those two players, they should cover whatever Pierre-Luc Dubois was bringing in around 60 points. I think these guys should be maybe both 50 to 60 point players, so that's good. They still got Nino Niederreiter here for one more season at $4 million. A decent addition when he was brought in. Are they going to extend him or trade him? He's 30 years old now. Adam Lowry, really like this player. A little bit of a Swiss Army knife. He can go all around. Mason Appleton, Namastinkov, Morgan Barron, Rasmus Kupari, Gustafsson, and Johnson Fialbi. So pretty good top 6, right? As long as some of these guys can bounce back like Scheifele and Ehlers. Kyle Connor's one of the most consistent players. You're pretty much guaranteed to get 40. And then if the new guys can slide in and fit in really well, probably going to have a bit more responsibility on this team because LA, they're very, very stacked offensively. So these guys are going to have a little bit more responsibility, I would imagine, offensively. So should be looking at some more points out of these guys. And then you got some of the younger guys in their bottom 6, like Kupari, Barron. Can they take another step? Mason Appleton, he's 27. Yeah, 27. So he is kind of what he is, and a lot of these guys are signed in for at least 2 years. David Gustafsson's on 1 more year. So, yeah, we'll see if these younger guys can take another step. They do have Cole Perfetti listed on their long-term injured reserve. That is another player. They're looking to have a big impact. Can he crack into the top 6 this season? He's 21. He's got some pretty good potential still around this player. He's just looking to take that big step. So is this the season that he does that? We'll have to wait and see. And they do have some pretty awesome young players here. I don't know how many or if any of these guys are going to make it, but Chaz Lucius, they have Brad Lambert, and then, there's that young guy that they brought in this season. They just drafted him. He looked like a an older young man, but I don't see his name listed right here. Maybe it was Lambert, I'm not sure. Regardless, they do have some pretty nice-looking young players in their system. They have some younger defensemen there as well. But let's talk about their main defensive core. You got Morrissey, who had an outstanding season last year. He did fall off a little bit at the end, so if he can do what he did last season, maybe spread it out a little bit, and that should be good. You got Schmid, Pionk, Dillon, DeMello, Sandberg, Stanley, and Capobianco. So a pretty solid-looking defensive core. It's not amazing. I think I like Neil Pionk more than anybody in the league. I really like him. Brendan Dillon, solid defensive defenseman. He's got one more year. Dylan DeMello, also a pretty solid defensive defenseman, also got one more year. Logan Stanley and Capobianco's got one more year as well. Josh Morrissey is locked in for quite a bit of time, so good deal right there. He's only paying about $6.25 million. Schmid, I don't know if he's necessarily lived up to that $6 million contract. He's been better in Winnipeg than he was with Vancouver, but yeah, this isn't the strongest defensive core. Like Morrissey, all of a sudden, he's like a top 10 defenseman in the league now, but yeah, everyone else is kind of like pretty just solid. They could try and add something to that defensive core. I don't know. There's not really much you can do with $2 million, but maybe you can add in something a little bit better. And then, of course, you got the big goaltending. Well, hold on. Let's take a look at those younger defense. I think they have someone. They have Ville Heinola, he's been there for a bit. He's really trying to find his way onto the roster. Is this the season? I mean, we'll have to kind of wait and see. And that's really the only name that I see that stands out to me that I can recognize. And then the goalies. So we got Connor Hellebuyck. He's in his last season, paying him $6 million. So are they going to trade him? What are they going to get for Hellebuyck? And yeah, it's a big question mark. Hellebuyck he's one of the best goaltenders in the league. He's been excellent for the Winnipeg Jets for many, many years now. And is this the last time Connor Hellebuyck plays? Are they going to be able to re-sign him? Does he want to be re-signed? I think it's going to basically fall down to how they're doing this season. Hellebuyck, 30 years old now, for that track record that he's had, I would imagine he's going to get paid more. Maybe he's going to be up in that $8-9 million range, and I don't know if you want to be paying a 30-year-old goaltender that much. He's probably going to want term on that as well. So the Jets might be smart to try and trade him off and see what they can get, but again, there's not a lot of teams out there that can afford it. Not a lot. It's just, it's going to be hard to find a awesome trade where Winnipeg is coming out ahead on that one, so it's going to be tough. And then they brought back Laurent Brossoit. I like Laurent Brossoit, so they're both locked in on one-year deals, so it could encourage them to play out of their minds. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't know what's going to go on with the Hellebuyck thing. They're more than likely going to have to try and bring in a goaltender. Would a trade like Gibson for Hellebuyck 1-for-1 work out? It kind of doesn't make any sense. It does for Winnipeg, but it doesn't for Anaheim, right? So I don't know what's going to happen with Connor Hellebuyck. I personally would like him to stay. I mean, he's just so damn good. But that's the big mystery for the Winnipeg Jets, is what they're going to do with that goalie. They also have Colin Delia down there in the minors, but never mind. I think, they'll keep him as a depth goaltender. They have a couple of really young goaltenders. I don't think we'll see much out of those. So where do I have the Winnipeg Jets? Honestly, admittedly, this is the hardest and kind of the most open division for me personally. I have them listed at third. I think they should be playoff bound, but there's a lot of question marks around this team, right? If they decide to sell off and they move off of Mark Scheifele and Hellebuyck and they're bringing in rather young prospects or picks, then that's going to hurt their chances going into a playoff spot. If they're able to extend both Mark Scheifele and Hellebuyck and they continue onward, I think this team should be playoff bound. I think without having Wheeler there anymore, I still don't know what that locker room divide is. Is Mark Scheifele and Hellebuyck on that opposite side? I don't know. I'm not inside their locker room, but I still like this team. They're pretty good. I think their defense could use a little bit of help, but their offense is still pretty tasty. I really like what they did with that trade, bringing in Iafallo and Velarde. Pretty nice job right there. So I think they're going to be third, but honestly, man, this division is going to be tough. It's going to be tough. The only ones that I feel really confident in are first and second place teams and the seventh and eighth team, but everything in the middle, it's up in the air, man. It's going to be tight. So Winnipeg, I got him listed for third as of right now, but with an asterisk being like what the future of Scheifele and Hellebuck is going to be. Okay, up next we got the powerhouse Dallas Stars. So they had a pretty good season last year. Not the best playoff run, but they did make it to the third round. So I mean, that's pretty fucking good. Me as a Leaf fan, I would take that any day of the week, please and thank you very much. So how did they do in their offseason? Well, they lost Will Butcher. He's off to Pittsburgh. Max Domi, he's gone to Toronto. Gardner is off to Philadelphia. Gleason, Edmonton. Luke Clendenning off to Tampa Bay. Ryan Shea is off to Pittsburgh. And Riley Tufte to Colorado. But they did bring in some players in the offseason. Smith, Hanley re-signed. Duchesne was brought in along with Steele. Bayreuther re-signed, I think, or he's coming back. Kamano, Reedy, Pouliot, Delandria re-signs, and Damiani. Okay, so there's a lot of names there that I don't really know, but we know what this team is all about. They got some really good young forwards just really emerging into their own right here. So let's take a look at their salary cap. They don't have any money. They have no money. General manager Jim Nill, he's been doing quite well lately. You know, some Dallas fans, they think, I mean, he's a genius some days and he's a complete moron at other times. Head coach Peter DeBoer, he's been very good. I think he's only been here for a couple of did he show up last season? I think he took over for the team last year, was able to inject some more offense into this team that they've been lacking over the last couple seasons. So, let's take a look at this forward group. See, he's still got Tyler Seguin there. He's making a fuckload of money, still just under $10 million. And yeah, he's definitely not living up to that contract anymore, but I mean, and thankfully they got other younger players that have stepped up and they're not getting paid as much. But yeah, he's still locked in for 4 more years. I don't know if they're ever going to be getting out of that contract, if they're ever going to be able to move it. Maybe they buy it out at some point, but regardless, he's still here. He's Tyler Seguin. He's not a bad player. He's just not living up to that $10 million contract right now. Then you got Jamie Benn, the captain of the team. He had a fantastic year last year. He was the second leading scorer on the team. He was about a point a game again. Yeah, he had a fantastic bounce back. Kind of looked like Jamie Benn was Dunyan Rings. And yeah, he had an awful playoff run for the Stars. And he's 34 years old now, still getting paid $9.5 million for this season and next. If he can do what he did last year, I mean, no problem. Just clean up a little bit in that playoff run. Just don't take so many stupid freaking penalties, and you should be okay. Rupe Hintz, just a fucking stud. I love this player. Might be my favorite player on the Stars. Starting his 8-year deal, he's 26, $8.5 million. I think that's a great deal. He was amazing in the playoffs for them, so he's going to be continuing onward with his career. You got Jason Robertson, 100-plus point player. He could hit 50 goals this season. Mason Marchment, you know, I really like what he brings to the team. They're probably going to want a little bit more points out of him. He's still locked in for 3. And fucking Jovo Cop, baby. Joe Pavelski, freaking 39 years old now, and he's still going. He had 70 points last year. Can he do it again? At this point, I can't bet against Joe Pavelski. He just continues to defy the aging process. $3.5 million. What a bargain. It's only 1 more year, though, but I think Jovo is just going to keep re-signing 1-year deals with Dallas until rather they win a cup or he retires. Radek Faksa, Matt Duchesne brought in for $3 million for 1 year, an absolute bargain, should be good for 50, 60 points. Evgeny Dadonov, Craig Smith brought in, Ty Delandria, Wyatt Johnson, and Sam Steele, man. That is a deadly forward group. Like Wyatt Johnson, he's 20. He almost scored, almost had 30 goals last year. Should have been a little bit more in the conversation with the Calder. Ty Delandria, he's still only 23 years old, but I don't think he's going to hit that offensive potential, but he's kind of a shit to play against nowadays. Craig Smith, great depth brought in for $1 million. Like, yeah, dude, that offensive, that's a nasty group. They're going to score a lot of goals this year. And let's just take a look at some of the younger guys, see if there's anybody that really Stan Logan. Stan Covenant, this guy is supposed to be the next one. This kid is supposed to be really good. Admittedly, I don't know very much about him, but if he cracks into the lineup this year and can provide some more scoring maybe on that third line or something, that could be Whew, that's going to be deadly, but he may not play this year. We'll have to wait and see. And now their defense, again, very, very good-looking defense, one of the best defensemen in the league, and Heiskanen probably good for 70-plus points. Jack of all trades, he is, I would say, elite in every aspect of the defensive game, offense, defense, he's great. Esa Lindell, solid defensive defenseman. Ryan Suter, he didn't play very good in the playoffs, but he brings a lot of veteran leadership. I think he's still getting paid a little bit too much. $3.65 million for this year and next. He's 38 years old. Yanni Hakanpää, he signed for one more year at 1.5. Solid defensive defenseman. Nils Lundqvist, this is the young defenseman they got from New York last year. He seemed pretty solid when he played, so he's looking to take another step. He's got one more year. Harley Thomas, one more year as well. He's 22. Joel Hanley, locked in for a couple more seasons. He's 32, solid depth defenseman. And Gavin Bayreuther, I think he played for Dallas before and he's back, but you can correct me if I'm wrong. Take a look at some of these younger defensemen down here. No one, Rosberg, is that? Nope, that guy's 27. They got a lot of older defensemen down there. They got Petrovic, he's 31. Pouliot, he's 29. So some of these guys could be cracking onto the roster or being depth defensemen, but a pretty good defensive group right here. Like Esa Lindell and Hakanpää are probably a little bit underrated. Lindell, admittedly, maybe a little overpaid, but Heiskanen is such a fucking stud, man. He is so freaking good. So I like that defensive core as well. And then in net, got Jake Ottinger, the Ott man. Yeah, he had a little bit of a rough go in the playoffs last year, but the bar was just set too high for Ottinger. Like, his first playoff run was so good. There was no way he was going to replicate that. I wasn't expecting him to, but he's still a very, very good young goaltender. Probably the best young goalie in the league. I'm trying to think of other guys, but he's one of them for sure. He's still locked in for 2 more years at $4 million, a bargain. And Scott Wedgwood, 1 more year at $1 million. Very good backup goaltender right there. And other goaltenders, they have the other Matt Murray, not the Leafs Matt Murray, but they have other Matt Murray. He might get into a few games this year. He's 25 years old. So yeah, I am very high on this Dallas team. I got them rated first in their division. I mean, they're just godly, man. Even if Joe Pavelski, if this is the year he falls off a cliff and he goes down to like 40 points, they can bring up Duchesne, they can bring up, there's a lot of young guys here. Like Wyatt Johnson is a very good young player. If he can avoid the sophomore slump, should be fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of problems on this team right here to deal with. Not a fun team to play against. So yeah, Dallas should be fantastic this season. Got them rated first in the division. All right, let's do Minnesota Wild. So they are in a little bit of a bind right now in terms of the dead money or the retention that they have on Zach Parise and Suter. So that shit is really kind of hampering them this season. So let's see who they lost over this year. They lost Mitchell Chafty. He is off to Tampa Bay. Matt Dumba is gone to Arizona. Joe Hicketts to LA. John Klingberg has gone to Toronto. Nyquist to Nashville. Ryan Reeves to Toronto. Sam Steele to Dallas. And Oscar Sundqvist has gone back to St. Louis. And in terms of who they signed in the offseason, they did not do very much. They were able to re-sign Gustafsson for 3 years, Duhaime for 1, and Lettieri signs a 2-year contract along with Lucchini. So yeah, they didn't get up to too much in the offseason because they have, like I said, the dead cap of Zach Parise and Suter now is like really up there. I think, what is that, $7.64 million is what it says dead cap on salary cap, or cap friendly. But somehow they still have $1.6 million left. So impressive. Again, there's not really a whole lot you can do with that. Maybe you can bring in Phil Kessel, because that would be awesome. You got GM Bill Guerin. Some people love him, some people don't. I mean, I really commend him for pulling that Zach Parise and Suter trigger. Like, that was not an easy thing to do. And considering, like, the really tough waters that he had to navigate now with that dead cat money, he's done a pretty decent job. Head coach Dean Evanson, I mean, he's pretty solid. And now their forward group. So you got the stud, the man, Kirill Kaprizov should be good for well over a point a game. He could be a 50 goal scorer, could hit well over 100 points this season as long as he's nice and healthy. Still got 3 more years, paying them $9 million. It's a pretty nice deal. Got Matthew Boldy, one of the younger guys. He's locked in. 7-year deal kicking in now at $7 million. So he's going to have to start living up to that contract. He's going to have to take another step forward. Matt Zuccarello, just loving it here in Minnesota. He's got 1 more year, paying him $6 million, and he is 36 years old now, so that's going to be a tough one. He plays really well with Kaprizov, so maybe they can keep him for cheap. They might end up trading him, though, this offseason, or this trade deadline. We'll have to wait and see. Joel Eriksson-Ek, really, really strong two-way forward. Marcus Foligno, the heart and soul of this team. He's got 1 more year left, paying him $3 million. He's 32. I feel like he'll be coming back for sure. Frederick Gaudreau, another solid player for them. Marcus Johnson, Ryan Hartman, Brandon Duhaime, Marco Rossi, Connor Dewar, and Patrick Maroon is here. So you got some good names here. So Marco Rossi is he's going to be the big one. So he had a miserable fucking season last year. He was not very good. So he's going to be looking to rebound from that. And they're going to really, really need their young players to step forward because they're the ones that's not making any money. And they're going to need production out of those guys. So they're going to be looking for Rossi to get into that 40 to 50 point range this season for sure. Ryan Hartman, he's got 1 more year, paying him 1.7, and yeah, he's been up and down. He scored 40 or 30 some odd goals a couple of years ago. He was really, really bad last season, just couldn't get it going, so he's looking to rebound. Marcus Johansson, solid. There's some solid players here, but admittedly not the deadliest forward group. They struggled, I think, last year scoring goals, but you got Kaprizov. He is, for sure, by far their best offensive option. Matthew Boldy, if he can take the next step and get up to that point a game, that would help them out a lot. And if Zuccarello can defy the aging process and continue to play the way that he's been playing with Kaprizov, then yeah, it's a solid offensive group. I'm just looking at their injured reserve, no one too crazy. They got Pavel Novak. I'm not familiar with that player. Now, I'm not seeing a lot of young players that are standing out to me, so we'll pop over, take a look at their defense. You got Jared Spurgeon. He's making quite a bit of money there. I didn't know he was making that much, $7.5 million, but he is a pretty damn good defenseman. Same with Jonas Brodin. Got Jacob Middleton. Alex Goligoski still going, baby, 38 years old. He's got 1 more year left, paying him $2 million. John Merrill, Brock Faber, who's looking to make an impact on this team this season, and Caden Allison, who they still need to re-sign. So they're going to want to get that Kalen Addison signed. Will they be able to get it done with that 1.6 that they have? I mean, if they could, I feel like they probably would have already gotten that done. So, no, we'll have to wait and see on that Kalen Addison. They're going to need that young man to play for them this year. It's a solid defensive group. So Matt Dumba was kind of the sacrificial lamb. There's just they couldn't bring him back. They had no money. It's an all right looking defensive group as long as they stay healthy. But it's not amazing. So they're going to be really relying on that goaltending this season. I'm just going to take a look at their defensive guys. There's a lot of young people here. David Spacek, I don't know. I don't really know a lot of those young guys, but probably someone down there going to be looking for to make a step forward. And then their goaltending. So Philip Gustafsson, a lot of their season I feel like is going to be hinging on this man's play. He was amazing last year. If he can do that again, oh my God, man. Ottawa Senators fans must be losing it. He's played so good since he got traded to Minnesota. I think he had the best save percentage in goals against last year. He didn't play the most, but I feel like he should be playing more because the backup is Marc-Andre Fleury. 38 years old now. He's got 1 more year paying him $3.5 million. Is this the last year for Marc-Andre Fleury, or is he going to continue to play? I could see him continuing onward, but is it going to be with Minnesota? We'll have to wait and see. But Gustafsson, 3 more years at 3.75. I mean, I think that's an absolute bargain. So if he can continue to play, that's going to help out Minnesota a lot. And this is a team it's going to be tough, man, but I do have them listed at 4th in this division. It could very well be a situation where The Pacific has 5 teams going in, and the Central has 3. I feel like the Central is a little bit weaker than the Pacific. There's a little bit more teams that seem more primed to go into the playoffs over the Central, but I have the Minnesota Wild listed as 4th. They could be playoff bound, but they're tough, man. That's a tough team. Like Kirill, if he goes down, like that's pretty much it. And if Gustafsson is not, if like last year was a one and done and he just falls off the cliff, it's not going to be a fantastic year. So they're kind of hinging. They're going to be, I think, in the mix, but if a couple things go wrong, I think that's going to be all she wrote for the Minnesota Wild this season. So curious to hear what you guys think about the Minnesota Wild. All right, Nashville Predators, you are up next. How did we do in the offseason? How busy? Not too busy. They did make quite a bit of signings, but it doesn't look like they lost too many guys. So you got Rasmus Asplund is off to Florida. Mark Borowiecki retired. Okay. Cal Foote is off to New Jersey. Alex Galchenyuk signed in Arizona. Josh Leonard, Arizona as well. And Zach Sanford went off to Arizona. Jeez, Arizona's just taken everybody. But they did get up to a lot of signings in the offseason. Luke Schenn signs for 3 years. Nyquist 2. Grosnick. Glass signs for 2. Ryan O'Reilly is here for 4 years. Carrier re-signed. Weatherby. And Gurianov signs a 1-year contract with them as well. So they got up to a bit. Some eyebrow-raising contracts. Kind of, admittedly, the Ryan O'Reilly one, but Barry Trotz, the general manager now, this is his first season as the general manager. The legendary David Poile has retired and handed the team off to Mr. Trotz, who used to be the coach for a very long time. You got Andrew Burnett. Excited to see that this guy is back coaching in the NHL. He was coaching the Panthers. He was great. Then he didn't coach, and now he's back with the Nashville Predators. So I don't know if he's going to be more, like, he seems to be more of an offensively minded coach, and Nashville's always been more towards the defense. So we'll see if that changes, if he just, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see how Andrew Burnett goes with Nashville. Rooting for that coach. I think he's pretty damn good. And cap space, they actually have just shy of $8 million available to them right now. So Phil Kessel, you could sign that guy. That would really help. There's some guys out there they could sign, but they still have money, so they could do something else with it, but they haven't done anything with it just yet. So they did bring in Ryan O'Reilly for $4.5 million for 4 years. And, I mean, as of right now, he looks like that is your first-line center because they got rid of Duchesne and Ryan Johansson, so they're both gone. I think they bought them both out. But Ryan O'Reilly listed as probably the first-line center, and it may not be great, man, because he fell off of a cliff offensively last season with St. Louis. He got it back a little bit with the Leafs, but not all the way back. I'm saying he's 32 now, so we're probably just going to see that decline continue. But he's going to have a way bigger role on Nashville than he did with St. Louis and Toronto, so maybe he can get back up to 50, 60 points, but we'll have to kind of wait and see. They have Nyquist, who is 34 now, Colton Sissons, Cody Glass, who's I don't know, man. He just hasn't really found it in the NHL. Probably a middle six center. Jakob Trenin, Philip Tomasino, young player. He's got 1 more year. None of these guys are probably going to break the bank, but they're going to start getting paid now. You got Juuso Parssinen, Dennis Gurianov, Thomas Novak, Luke Evangelista, Mark Jankowski, Kiefer Sherwood, and Cole Smith. So, yeah, man, I don't think there's even one really potent offensive option in that top 6. It's a pretty fucking weak top 6. Thomas Novak was pretty decent. Gurianov, I mean, he's had flashes. Maybe he can score 20. Parssinen, he's 22, and Tomasino. So they're looking for big step-ups out of those 2 young players. Could Jakob Trenin break out? Is Cody Glass going to finally break out? I mean, he's 24 now, so it's it's kind of, the door's kind of closing on him, but maybe. Yeah, man, this is going to be an offensive lineup that is going to struggle to score some goals, I think. They do have Philip Forsberg on long-term injured reserve. He should be ready to go, and yeah, they're going to need that guy back and hopefully healthy. The way that I've always seen Philip Forsberg, he always kind of, I think he's the one that starts out kind of slow, and then back half, he is just one of the best players in the league, so we'll see if he can do that again. He's 29, and he's getting paid $8.5 million for the next 7 years. So, yeah, that's a thing. Let's see some of the younger players here. If there's someone that I can, Kalen Lynn, you got Nolan Burke. Yeah, I don't know any of those young players. And their defensive core, you got Roman Josi, one of the most handsome guys in the NHL. He is 33 years old now. Wow. Still got 5 more years. He had a down year in comparison to the year prior where he almost got 100 points. But he should be good for at least point a game. Ryan McDonough, I really like him in Nashville. He's been a great fit, but he's 34 now, so he's getting up there. Tyson Barrie, 1 more year at 4.5. Decent fit, offensive defenseman, has really no defensive abilities, but it's okay. They brought in Luke Shen. He's got all the defensive abilities and no offense. And he's getting paid, man, 3 years, 2.75. This is probably the only place that was going to give him that much money, but good for him. Alex Carrier, he's a good little defenseman for them. Dante Fabro, pretty solid as well. Jeremy Lauzon, they locked him up for 3 years at $2 million. So again, it's a pretty alright looking defensive group. Like Ryan McDonough, Luke Shen, that's some good defensive defensemen right there. Roman Josi, one of the best defensemen in the game. And take a look at some of those young guys. They got anybody that really stands out to me? Prokop, that sounds like a name that I've heard before. And then their goaltending, it's like I like that defensive core. Their goaltending is what's going to keep them probably better than what they should be, and that's because of UC Saros. The dude is unbelievable. I think top 5 goaltender in the league. But the team just kind of keeps getting downgraded each year, so maybe UC Saros doesn't have the best season this year, or he stands on his head and he makes Nashville a better team than they should be. He's got 2 more years paying him $5 million, and he is getting backed up by Kevin Lankinen, who had a pretty fucking awful season last year, but he should be doing better with Nashville, and he should be a solid backup for them. In terms of other young goaltenders, I know they got Askarov. He's 21. I don't think we're going to see him into many games or any games this season, but injuries happen. Maybe we see Askarov come back and he just grabs the ball and never lets it go. So he's got a lot of potential behind him. It's only a matter of time before he takes the net for Nashville. Yeah, man, this team it's going to be tough. They could be competitive into a playoff spot, but I really don't think they're going to make it into the playoffs. I got them listed at 6th. UC Saros could drag them into a higher spot. I kind of have Winnipeg, Minnesota, Nashville, and another team kind of all in the mix with each other. I think they're going to be fighting for that last spot in the West, and they're going to be in that wild card situation, I would imagine. But Nashville's offense just looks so weak, man. They don't really have any centers. I can't see Ryan O'Reilly bouncing back and being a 60-plus point kind of guy. I feel like they're just going to be trying to keep the puck out of the net. They're going to struggle to score, but they're not going to let in as many. But if UC Saros goes down, they're completely fucked. So, yeah, I got them listed as 6th, but they could be competitive for a good chunk of the season, but I think they're going to be not very awesome this season. It's time for St. Louis, the St. Louis Blues. How did you guys do in the offseason? They weren't too busy in the offseason, honestly. Let's see here. Logan Brown has gone to Tampa Bay. Thomas Greiss retired. Matthew Highmore to Ottawa. Brady Lyle to Calgary. Pitlick to New York. Santini to Los Angeles. And Todd to San Jose. They were able to bring in McEachran, Jacobs, Kalniuk, Malcolm Subban, all for 1 year. McGing, Sundqvist is back, and Torpchenko with a 2-year contract. So they didn't get up to too much. Last season was definitely disappointing for them. I think they made a couple of really good waiver pickups in Verana and Kapanen. There it is. And they got no money. They got $200,000, $300,000 in cap space, so nothing much to work with there. GM is Doug Armstrong, who's been here for a long time, and head coach Craig Berube, who I think, honestly, even if he has another bad season this year, I think he is still pretty safe. He is a pretty damn good coach. All right, let's take a look at this forward group. So you got Jordan Kyrou and Robert Thomas. They're both entering their 8-year deals, each getting paid $8.125 million. Bit of a rough start for them last season. They did pick it up. into the back half, so they're going to want to get off to a better start this season and get back up to that point a game plus area. That would be good, especially for Kyrou. Robert Thomas is such a fantastic passer. They're 24 and 25 years old respectively, so there still could be still looking to get more point production out of them and a bounce back from them. Braden Shen, he's 32 now. He's still locked in for 5 years. We know what he's all about. Great little two-way forward. Pavel Buchnevich, who seemed to be a fantastic fit for them out of New York. He is a good goal scorer. Should be good for 30 goals if he's healthy. Brandon Saad is still here. Kevin Hayes brought in from Philadelphia. Kasperi Kapanen is got 1 more year at 3.2, so this could be beneficial for them. They brought him in for waivers, got him for nothing. And if he's on a 1 more year, he's kind of been up and down in the league. He didn't have a great run with Pittsburgh, so he's got a lot to prove this season, and he could bounce back big with that contract year. Same with Jacob Verana. He's got 1 more year at 2.6, and if he can find that goal scoring again, he could be good for 2025. Maybe he can even hit 30 goals. That would be huge for St. Louis. They got Korpchenko, Sammy Blais, Jake Neighbors, Alexandrov, and Sundqvist. I like this offensive group, man. This is a good little offensive group. If you have, like, down the middle, Robert Thomas, Braden Shen, and Kevin Hayes, that's a nice-looking center group. I mean, we all know that Kevin Hayes isn't great defensively, but he was in and around a point a game last season for a pretty awful Philadelphia team. Brandon Saad, I don't know if he's necessarily that top 6, and if Kasperi Kapanen and or Verana can bounce back and get back into the top 6, I like this forward group. I think it's actually pretty darn all right, and their bottom 6 is not bad. You know, Jake Neighbors is down there. He's 21, looking to take another step. Blais is a great addition. Sundqvist is a good addition as well. So I like those guys. Let's take a look at the younger players, see if there's anyone. They have Dvorsky, so he was one of the players that allegedly seemed to be one of the closer ones to NHL ready. He is 18. Good chance we don't see him in the lineup this season, but maybe as soon as next year. They have Adam Gaudette. He could play. Zach Dean, I've heard of before. Nathan Walker, I think he's the Australian player, if I might be mistaken on that one, but they have some young players in the system there as well. And then their defensive group, so not the best looking. They have tried to make some changes. They tried to trade Torrey Krug to Philadelphia to bring in Sanheim for some reason, but that fell through. So they have Justin Falk, Torrey Krug, Colton Parayko, Nick Leddy, Marco Scandella, Bortuzzo, Tucker, and Callie Rosen. Hey. So, I mean, Justin Falk is a solid, a little bit more to the offensive side, but he's okay. Same with Torrey Krug, more of an offensive defenseman. Parayko needs to bounce back. He had a pretty rough year last season, and he's in his 8-year extension, $6.5 million. Some people think he's overpaid. Nick Leddy, 32, pretty solid defenseman. Marco Scandella and Bortuzzo got 1 more year left. Pretty solid defensive defenseman. It's not a bad defensive group, but there's not like a really stud defensive defenseman or even a really stud like top 2 defenseman. Like Colton Parayko is close, but after last season, he's definitely fallen off a little bit. So it's not a bad defensive group. And I know they have some young defensemen coming up. It's Matthew Gettel. Oh, I wonder if that guy's related to Phil Gettel. Perunovic. Scott Perunovic. Is that a guy that's supposed to be something? I don't know. He's 25 now, so I don't know. And I think this is going to be the biggest element of the team. If St. Louis is going to be bad or good, it's going to come down to this guy, Jordan Binnington in net. 30 years old now, 4 more years, paying him $6 million, and he's got to settle down, bro. He's got to settle down and just focus on playing hockey. He gets way too in his head. He gets way too focused on other shit that really has nothing to do with him, trying to fight people, and like he's got to calm down and find his game again. And if he can, I think St. Louis is going to be a pretty good team. But I mean, it's the way that Benner has played for like years now. It hasn't been very good, and they don't really have the best backup necessarily. You have Joel Hofer. He's 23 years old, so he still needs to kind of prove himself here. I haven't heard a whole lot about this young goaltender. They have Malcolm Subban. He could potentially be the backup, but he's like not the best. He's not a great backup goaltender either. He's an option, probably better suited as a depth goaltender, but looks like Hofer is set to be the backup goaltender, so Benner is going to have a lot of responsibility, and if he falls apart, so is this team. So with that being said, I have St. Louis listed at 5th, but this St. Louis is very close, I feel, to Minnesota and Winnipeg, and, well, I think Nashville, honestly, it's going to be really, I think it's mostly down to Winnipeg, Minnesota, and St. Louis. I feel like these three teams are very much so in the same boat. There's like a major part on every team. Like with Winnipeg, it's the trading or what's going to happen with Scheifele Hellebuck. With Minnesota, it's going to be if Gustafsson can continue to play the way that he did last season, and for the younger players in Minnesota to take that next step forward. And then with St. Louis, it's pretty much Binnington. I think their offensive group is quite good. Their defensive group is solid enough. It's not bad, but I wouldn't call it good either. So yeah, it's going to be tough for St. Louis as well. But if fucking Kapanen and Verona, like if they can bring those guys back, they could be really good trade options for them at the trade deadline. They can get a lot back for them. So it's going to be an interesting season for St. Louis if they can bounce back or not. If they're going to, what decision they want to go with in the future. Like, it's kind of tough, right? Like, they got these two young players. They're entering their big league deals now. A lot of the older guys are gone, like Ryan O'Reilly. They still have Braden Shen, but yeah, they're kind of shifting into a new era for St. Louis, and we'll see if it's going to be going well for them or if it's not. So we'll see how it goes for St. Louis this season. I have them listed at 5th. Now, for everybody's favorite team, the Arizona Coyotes, they were very, very busy this offseason in terms of signings because they claim they are ready to come out of that rebuild and to start being a competitive team. Their planning is to be a playoff team once they get their new arena and everything settled in. So we'll see if this is the year they start to take a step forward. So, who did they lose in the offseason? Christian Fischer is gone to Detroit, Imama to Ottawa, Connor Mackey to New York. So they didn't lose too many people, and they brought in a fuckload. Zucker, Bugstad, Velalti, Stetcher, Kerfoot, Leonard, Smith, Dermott, Sanford, Galchenyuk, Kirkland, Prosvetov, Machelli, re-signed, McBain, and Dumba. So I think that might be the most signings a team has made this offseason, and they were definitely a team ready to do that because they had a shitload of money. They don't have very much of it left now. They're just under $4 million. They got $3.9 million left to play with. So Phil Kessel, you want to bring him back? I'd be so into that. I would love to get my hands on a Phil Kessel what's that? The Peyote Coyote Phil Kessel jersey? I would love that. That would be so fucking cool. We got general manager Bill Armstrong, head coach Andre Cherney. Cherney's been here for a little bit now. He's slowly building up that team, same with Armstrong. Let's take a look at this forward group, man. I think their forward group is not that bad at all. One of the most underrated players in the league in Clayton Keller. The dude is a superstar, honest to God. He could hit 100 points this season, the first person to ever do that for the Arizona Coyotes. I think he's excellent. 5 more years at 7.1, one of the best contracts in the league. You got Nick Schmaltz, another really underrated player. He's been fantastic for Arizona. He's just got to stay healthy. And that line last year of Keller, Schmaltz, and I think was it Barrett Hayton or it was someone. Anyway, they had a really good line going for them last year. They brought in Jason Zucker, 31 years old now, $5 million for 1 year. Should be a nice top 6 addition to the team. Lawson Krause, he's a big boy. He can hit the shit out of you. Alexander Kerfoot, he was brought in, former Toronto Maple Leaf. I know quite a bit about this player. He's making $3.5 million. And, he's going to go out there and do a lot of busy nothing. Like, he's a very unnoticeable player. He kind of just does things, and nothing really happens when he's out there. He doesn't really score all that much. He doesn't really let a whole lot go in against him. He's just kind of a foot soldier, honestly. You got Matthias Machelli. He had a great little year last season, looking to build on that. The 22-year-old forward. Nick Bugstad, Barrett Hayton, looking to take another step forward. 23-year-old center, final year of 1.775. Travis Boyd, you got Jack McBain, Logan Cooley, if he can, I don't know if he's going to crack onto the roster this season, but you have Dylan Gunther there as well. He could crack the lineup. So they got two young wingers right here. Logan Cooley apparently listed as a center. I didn't know that. But yeah, they got young players here, Liam O'Brien and Michael Carcone. So maybe not the most, mostly because Arizona doesn't get the attention, but legitimately Clayton Keller is a superstar. Nick Schmaltz is a great top 6 player. I think, yeah, man, they have some really good players here. They don't have a lot of like first line talent outside of Clayton Keller. Nick Schmaltz is like borderline, but once that line gets rolling and if they stay nice and healthy this season, it could be a problem. And if Logan Cooley and or Dylan Gunther get in there, make a big impact right away, oh boy, we could see a splash out of Arizona this year. So let's take a look at some of the other young players. They have Connor Geekie. I don't know if we're going to see him just yet. They got Atu Ratti. They got him from the Islanders, I think. I don't know if he's going to make it necessarily. Kirkland, John Leonard, that sounds familiar, but anyway, I don't know. And we know they have a lot of people on their dead cap and everything like that. Jacob Voracek, Shea Weber, Brian Little. I don't think any of those guys are going to be playing. Same with Travis Dermott. He might play, but he might not. And they're still paying off Ekman Larson and all that stuff, but not too much. All right, so let's take a look at that defensive core. So this is where they're definitely a little bit weak still. They brought in Matt Dumba, and that's going to help. They brought in Sean Dursey through a trade. That should help. He could have a really big season, man. Like, he was playing really well with LA, and from the look at this team, he is going to be option number 1 on the power play, so he could break out for 50, 60 points, so keep an eye on Dursey. And everybody on this defensive core only has one more year left, all of them. Joshua Brown, Troy Stetcher, Juuso Valimaki, JJ Moser, and Victor Soderstrom. So they're 2 young defensemen here, and Moser and Soderstrom going to be looking for a big step forward if they can really solidify themselves into the top 4. Stetcher slides down to the bottom 6, and maybe Joshua Brown. Even with all that, it's still not a very good-looking defensive core. That's something they're going to be needing to build, but they also have a lot of young defensemen on the way up. They just drafted a couple of them this season. I don't think they have them listed here on their cap friendly, but they drafted a young defenseman this offseason. They got that Boot guy as well that they drafted this draft, but I don't think we're going to be seeing any of them. But they do have young defensemen on the way up, but they're just going to have to take a year or two before that defensive core is good. But they're bringing in some guys to hold them over, like Matt Dumba and Dursey. That's going to be the interesting one. So if he can hit 50, 60 points, how much is this guy going to want? And I think it should be good to sign him in Arizona. I think Sean Dursey is going to like the opportunity that they're going to offer him here in Arizona with, I imagine, is going to be top power play. So how much is Sean Dursey going to get in his next contract? Is it going to be a long-term contract, or is it going to be a bridge? So that one is going to be very interesting. And then goaltending. So they got, I think it's the same tandem that they had last year in Vejmelka and Connor Ingram. Vejmelka, some games he's incredible, other games he's just crap. Tends to play better against the better teams in the league. So if you put Vejmelka in against the good teams, maybe put Ingram in against the weaker teams, and they might be able to win you a bunch of games right here. They're both making pretty low amount of money. Like, Vejmelka still got 2 more years. He was a huge trade target last season. He never got traded, so maybe Arizona really likes this guy and they want to keep him for himself. And he seems to be a solid starter. Not an amazing, not even like really good. At times he looks incredible. At other times he just looks so bad. But we'll see how it goes for them and that goaltending tandem. And do they have a young goaltender on the way up? I don't know. So they're going to have to stick with those guys. They have a little bit of money that maybe they can bring in extra. I think they really need help in goaltending and defense. So if they're going to be bringing in anybody, it better be on the back end, because I think their forward group is actually pretty good. It's just going to take a little bit of time for the younger guys to get up to speed, but it's looking pretty decent, man. I think they can score some goals this season, but they might have a little bit of trouble keeping the puck out of their net. In terms of where I have them listed as 7th, but I could easily see them going past Nashville, and Nashville slides down, and Arizona takes a step forward, because they seem to be on the up and ups as Nashville seems to be going downward. So I would be totally fine with switching that and put Arizona 6th and Nashville 7th. I'd be totally cool with that. But I have them listed as 7th personally. So let's move on to the final team, and that is the Chicago Blackhawks. We know they're in a full rebuild right now, and they got that new kid that you might have heard of, Connor Bedard. So he's going to be kind of the vocal point of that team this season. That's kind of going to be the only high spot, I would imagine, of this team. But let's see what they did in the offseason. Andreas Englund, just want to make sure I'm on the right team. Yep, okay. Andreas Englund's off to Los Angeles, Caleb Jones to Carolina, and Alex Stalock went to Anaheim. They didn't sign very many people either. They brought in Donato for 2 years, and Kurashev got a 2-year extension. So that's really all they've got up to in the offseason. Obviously, their big addition of Connor Bedard. And how do I feel like Connor Bedard is going to do? Well, I've heard some projections that some people think he's going to score like 40-plus goals, and I just can't see that, honestly. Like, he's obviously going to be given the chance. He's probably going to be their top option in terms of offense. He's probably going to be leading the offense in every single way, and he's going to be getting the puck first over a lot of other players, but I would imagine teams are going to be keying in on him, and we're just going to have to wait and see how he adapts. I think he should be good for, like, I'd say 60 points, maybe a 30-30 or a 25-45, something like that. I think his assists are going to be lower and his goals are going to be higher this season, just because there's not a whole lot of guys to pass to on this team. But let's get started. So, general manager Kyle Davidson's been here for a hot minute. Head coach Luke Richardson, who's doing a pretty good job with this rebuilding team. So let's take a look at this forward group. They brought in Taylor Hall. Tyler Johnson's here for another season at $5 million. Andreas Athanasiou given a lot of money to remain with the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, good for him. I don't think he'd be getting $4.25 million anywhere else. They brought in Corey Perry and Nick Foligno for $4 million apiece. They're 35 and 38. Definitely brought in to shepherd in the younger players. Jason Dickinson, a solid middle six two-way forward. Philip Kurashev, who had a pretty nice season last year, looking to build on that. He's 23. Ryan Donato, Colin Blackwell, obviously Connor Bedard. You're going to be looking for. I'm admittedly quite excited to see what this player is going to do in the NHL. I imagine a lot of people are, especially the Blackhawks fans. Cole Gutman, Mackenzie Entwistle, Boris Kachuk, and Taylor Radish. So I'm guessing that's the Taylor Radish that I keep thinking is the forward that was in Tampa Bay. I think, yeah, Chicago's got him now. So, yeah, this isn't a forward group that really screams much of anything on. It doesn't scare me whatsoever. Taylor Hall, he's not the Taylor Hall he used to be. He's not going to get like 90-plus points. Probably good for like 60. Yeah, man, there's not really a lot of players here that are going to be doing a lot of damage other than Connor Bedard. Taylor Hall's going to get some points. Kurashev should get some points. But, yeah, no one here that's really a danger to other teams. Other younger players that they have, we have Lucas Reichel. There's a lot of young players. They got Samuel Savoie. I believe he is someone who's looking to make an impact, but I don't know how many of these younger players are going to be bringing up just yet. They might wait a year just to kind of, because it's going to be a rough year, y'all. It's going to be another really rough year. It could be another first overall pick season for the Chicago Blackhawks. I can't see Connor Bedard all by himself turning this team around. Like, when Matthews came in, so did Marner and Nylander, so he had other players coming in with him. So I don't think Bedard is going to have the introduction to the NHL that Matthews did, but maybe he scores 5 goals in his first game. Wouldn't that be fun? Now their defense. So they got Seth Jones getting paid everything in the world, $9.5 million for 7 more years. He had a pretty rough season last year, so he's going to want to bounce back, but I don't think he's ever going to be living up to that $9.5 million. So, you know, it's not going to be a fun ride for poor Mr. Jones. And I like him. He's a good defenseman. He's just not $9.5 million good. Nikita Zaitsev has finally made it to the final year of that 7-year, $4.5 million deal. When he re-signs, wherever he re-signs, he ain't making $4.5 million. Let me tell you that for free. Connor Murphy, longtime Chicago Blackhawk, Tenorti, Roos, Kaiser, and Phillips. So, I mean, Kaiser and Phillips are both 21. Maybe they make an impact on this team. Roos is 24. This defensive core kind of sucks, man. This is not a very good defensive core, and their goalies are pretty bad too, man. Peter Mrazek, I mean, he played good for the team that was in front of him, I guess, but he was still pretty bad himself. He's got $3.8 million for the next year. And then they got Soderblom. He's 24. I don't really know much about this player, admittedly. So we'll see what goes on with that. So, yeah, there's not a lot of great things to say about this team. Let's just take a look at that defense to see if there's any of these young players that are looking to come up. I don't know any of those names, and I don't know their goalies. So if there's some younger players coming up, let me know. I don't see them. Easy, safe to say, I got Chicago listed at 8th. They're definitely still in the rebuild, even though they got Bedard. It's a great way to kick off the rebuild, but they still got quite a ways to go. So I got them listed as last in the division. Probably going to be in and around last place in the league this season as well. But hell, you got Connor Bedard, so there is that to look forward to. And I can't wait to see what he's going to do. It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's it. We made it through all of the predictions. I'd love to hear your guys' predictions. Let me know how bad my predictions are. I mean, they're just fun. They're generally always going to be wrong, but I'll keep all the predictions here. I think maybe next week we'll do like the award predictions and everything like that, because that's always fun. And hopefully there's going to be a little bit more news. We are getting closer to the beginning of the season. We're in September now, so that's crazy. Training camps should be starting in a week or two or something like that. I don't really care much about training camps. I won't watch anything like that, but I will keep my ears and eyes open for any big news that's coming out and all that great stuff. So thank you everybody so much for listening. Try your best to stay cool out there. It is hot as fuck right now. We're getting our last heat wave of the summer, and then hopefully it'll cool down a little bit because it is way too friggin' hot out here right now. So thank you everyone again for listening. You can go back and listen to any of the prior episodes. I got a big GX GamerCast that came out this week, Rock Band versus Guitar Hero. So please go over and check that one out for me. If you have any questions or comments, you want to have your questions read on the show, just send in your comments or questions. There's an email address. You can follow along on Twitter. The episodes get uploaded to YouTube, so you can drop a comment on YouTube. That'd be a great place to put them. And so thank you everyone. We will be back again soon with more GX Plus Cast.